Hello, welcome to the third video of the school year. As you notice, we're still in Chapter 1, Linear Functions, and this is Section 3, Part 1. We're going to do two parts for this section, Part 1 being a little bit easier than Part 2, but both of them should be a review for you. Once again, I'm going to apologize for my cough. I still have a cough. We're going on about 4 weeks now with this, so I do apologize. Hopefully you can understand what I'm saying, and hopefully you understand the material. The objective of this particular section is to find an equation of a line given certain geometric properties of that line. Okay, so they're going to give you slope or a couple points or the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through a bunch of examples that give you different pieces of information, all coming up with the original equation for the line. Okay, and the equation that we're going to use for this particular section and the next section is the equation y equals mx plus b. So we're going to do slope-intercept form. And remember that m stands for slope and b stands for the y-intercept. Okay, so all of our equations are going to be y equals mx plus b. Okay, so starting with our first example, example 1, we are going to find the equation of a line that goes through the points 1, 4, and 5, negative 2. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is write out the equation y equals mx plus b, and we're going to think about it. What can we figure out given 2 points? Can we figure out the slope, or can we figure out b? Hopefully most of you realize that you can figure out this slope when you're given 2 points. So that's what we're going to do first. And remember, the slope equation is you subtract your y's on top and you subtract your x's on the bottom. So the first thing we're going to do is subtract our y's. So our first y value is 4. Our second y value is negative 2. On the bottom, we subtract our x's. Our first x value is 1. Our second x value is 5. So what do we get for our slope here? 4 minus a minus 2 turns into plus. 4 plus 2 is 6. 1 minus 5 is negative 4. Hopefully at this point you know that that reduces to negative 3 halves. So the first part of our equation is the slope, and we know that it's negative 3 halves. So over out of my equation, I'm going to plug in negative 3 halves where I see slope. Alright, so now we have y equals negative 3 halves x plus b. So what we need to do now is figure out what else do we know. We do not know the y-intercept. We do not know b. But we do know some x values and y values. We're given 2 sets of them. So what you're going to do is we're going to pick one of these 2 points. Let's just pick 1, 4. You'd get the same answer if you picked 5, negative 2. I'm just going to make it easy and pick the first one. Okay, so we're going to plug in 1 and 4. Remember, the first number is x, second number is y. Okay, so we're going to come back to our equation. I see y equals, so y is 4 equals negative 3 halves times x. X happens to be 1. I'm going to make it a fraction. I'm just going to turn it into 1 over 1 plus b. Okay, so let's multiply here. So 4 equals negative 3 halves times 1. Well, we have negative 3 times 1, which is negative 3. And we have 2 times 1, which is 2. So anything times 1 is anything. So we have negative 3 halves. And we're still trying to figure out what this b is, so that's good because that's the only variable that's left. So what do we need to do to get that negative 3 halves on the other side? Well, hopefully Algebra 1 taught you that you need to add 3 halves to both sides to get rid of it. Negative 3 halves plus 3 halves is 0. And what I'm left with is b equals 4 minus 3 halves. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to turn 4 into a fraction, and we're going to get a common denominator. What is the common denominator between 1 and 2? Okay, well hopefully at this point you know that it's 2. So a second fraction stays the same. If I turn the bottom one into it, first one into 2, 1 times 2 is 2. What's 4 times 2? 4 times 2 is 8. And if you notice, 4 over 1 is the same thing as 8 over 2. That always should happen. Okay, so what is 8 halves minus 3 halves? 8 minus 3 is 5 halves. And that is our b value. So we have our m value and we have our b value. We can write our equation as negative 3 halves x, because that's our slope, plus 5 halves, because that is our b value. So there we have our equation. Y equals negative 3 halves x plus 5 over 2. So that's example 1. Example 2 is very similar. It says find the equation of a line that has an x-intercept of 8 and a y-intercept of 4. So going back to the very first section, we need to remember that when we're talking about x-intercept, y is 0, and when we're talking about y-intercept, x is 0. So we already have two numbers in ordered pairs, we just need to fill in the other. So it says the x-intercept is 8, and this one says the y-intercept is 4. So now it turns into the exact same equation that we had for the last one because we have two ordered pairs. So once again, I'm going to start with my equation. Oops, get rid of that. Let me start with my equation. Y equals mx plus b. And this one is a little bit easier because they already give us one of these numbers. They already give us m or b. Hopefully you realize they already give you the b value, the y-intercept. So what number should I plug in for b? It says the y-intercept is 4. So I'm going to plug in 4 for b. So we are already done with half of our equation. The only other piece of information we can get is the m value. So I'm going to write y equals x, and we should be able to figure out slope pretty easily. Okay, so coming back over here, we're going to figure out slope. Remember, it's the y subtracted from the x's. So we have y value of 0 minus y value of 4. On the x's, we have 8 minus 0. So 0 minus 4 is negative 4. 8 minus 0 is 8. Negative 4 over 8 reduces to negative 1/2. So there we go. We have negative 1/2 as our slope. We are now done. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. So always pay attention to see if they give you m or b already. Okay, we could have done this problem exactly like we did the last example, but they already give you the y-intercept. So you just plug that 4 right in for b, because that's what it is. Okay, hopefully that makes some sense. Example 3. It says find the x-intercept, the y-intercept, and the slope of the following equation. Okay, so remember, we need y equals mx plus b. So what can I do to this equation in order to get it to look like y equals mx plus b? Hopefully, the first thing that comes to your mind is I'm going to solve for y. Solve my equation for y. So that's what we're going to do first. I'm going to subtract 2x. 2x's are gone because it equals 0. I'm left with negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 9. Last thing I need to do here is to get rid of this negative 3. So I'm going to divide everything by negative 3. Divide by negative 3. And what do we get when we divide everything by negative 3? Negative 2 over negative 3 is positive 2/3 x. Positive 9 divided by negative 3 is negative 3. Okay, so we can already answer two of the questions right now. It wants to know the x-intercept, y-intercept, and slope. So what is the slope based off of this equation here? Hopefully you recognize that the slope is the number in front of x from the first section. So the slope is 2/3. The y-intercept is always the number after the x. So the number after the x is negative 3. Now all we need to do is figure out the x-intercept. So once again, remember from the first section, what do we know about the x-intercept? Y equals 0. Y equals 0. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this equation that we figured out, and we're going to plug in 0 for y. Okay? So 0 equals 2/3 x minus 3. So what we're going to do now is use our algebra skills to solve for x, because that's the only variable that's left over. So I'm going to add 3. Minus 3 plus 3 is 0. 0 plus 3 is 3. Equals 2/3 x. Okay, moving on. Last step. How do I get rid of multiplication by 2/3? I divide by 2/3. Oops. I'm going to divide by 2/3. 2/3 over 2/3 is 1, so that goes away. X equals. Now, let's remember going back. When you divide by a fraction, that really means multiply by the reciprocal. So you take whatever's on top, and you're going to multiply it by the reciprocal of your fraction, which is 3/2. And very easily turn 3 into a fraction by putting it over 1. And now all we have to do is multiply straight across. 3 times 3 is 9. 2 times 1 is 2. 9/2 does not reduce, so that is our x-intercept, 9/2. 9/2. So I'm going to go back up here. Our x-intercept is 9/2. So x-intercept's 9/2, y-intercept is -3, and the slope is 2/3. Okay. If you don't get it, make sure you always go back and rewind and pause just to make sure that you're understanding these examples. Moving right along, example 4. This one's a little bit easier. It says find the x-intercept, y-intercept, and slope of the following equation. Now we have to go back to our first video, or the second, I'm not quite sure, where we graphed x equals -1. If we remember, x equals -1, we put a dot at -1, and it was a vertical line through -1. So now I think we should be able to answer all of our questions. Okay, what is the x-intercept? Where does the graph cross the x-axis? Well, it crosses right at what it says it's equal to, -1. What is the y-intercept? Does this graph ever cross the y-axis? And you should notice that no, it does not. It never crosses the y-axis. So there is no solution for the y-intercept. And lastly, we need to figure out what the slope is. Remember, there's 4 types of slopes: vertical, horizontal, diagonal down and to the right, diagonal up and to the right. This one is a vertical. Thinking back, we should have remembered that slope is undefined, or there is no slope. Okay, vertical lines are undefined or no slope. Okay, so that one's pretty easy. So make sure if you can graph it, you can see it very easily what the answers are. And lastly, for this section, we have example 5, and it says find an equation of a line that has a slope of -4 and an x-intercept of -6. Okay, so once again, there's my trusty equation, y equals mx plus b. Is there anything we can fill in that we already know? Okay, it does say that we have a slope of -1/4. So what I'm going to do is plug in for slope, -1/4. Okay, and then I'm going to drop everything else down, and we're going to see what else we know. Okay, going back to I think it was the second example. What do we know about x-intercepts? We know that the y value is 0, and then the x value is whatever they give you. So we have an ordered pair of -6, 0 for the x-intercept. So now what we do, remember 6 is x, 0 is y. We need to plug those in for x and y in our equation that we have. So y equals 0, so 0 equals -1/4 times x, which is -6. I'm going to turn that into a fraction, so I have 2 fractions. Now I'm going to just multiply. So 0 equals -1 times -6 is 6. 4 times 1 is 4, plus b. Hopefully that makes sense. 0 equals 6/4 is 3/2. Lastly, we use Algebra 1. How do I get a positive 3/2 over on the left? Well, Algebra 1 says I need to subtract it from both sides. So when I do that, I get 3/2 minus 3/2 is 0. And I get b is equal to 0 take away 3/2 is -3/2. So it's telling me that my b value is -3/2. So to finish off the problem, we have an equation of y equals, we already know the slope is -1/4 because they told us in the problem that it was. So -1/4 x. What did we get for our b value? Our b value is -3/2. So up in my equation, I'm going to write -3/2. And there we have it. There is how to write equation given the slope and the x-intercept. So they're always going to give you 2 pieces of information. Just remember that we're always using y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. Hopefully that makes sense. I will answer any questions that you have tomorrow. Have a good rest of the night or the rest of the day, and I will see you in class tomorrow.